another topic I wanted to bring up. I know we've kind of spoken about it beforehand, but big rumors, lots of other potential free agents, but could the Eagles sign Saquon Barkley? I know that's been circulating. What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious to get your take.
I almost did a show on that today, and instead I did the Dalvin Cook trade stuff. Victor Williams from the Liberty Line, friend of the show, he had this whole elaborate plan of, well, the Vikings are $24 million over the cap, and so they barely used Dalvin Cook, 39% rushing or 34% rushing last year. Dalvin could be traded, and then you get a new contract for him. I pitched that idea today, and I don't mind it, but I think the same thing goes for Saquon Barkley. I like the idea. But Saquon, if he becomes a free agent, it's because the Giants can't afford him. It's not because the Giants don't want him. The Giants would sign Saquon Barkley right now in a heartbeat, but Saquon probably wants big-time running back money. And honestly, he looked pretty good last year, and so go and try and get that one running back contract or two running back contracts. That's about all you're worth in terms of a running back. I just would much rather have Miles Sanders. And I saw that Miles Sanders, I'm going to talk about this on my show tomorrow, Miles Sanders put on Instagram today, he wants to be back in Philadelphia. He straight up said it, which is very rare because you want to be able to sell yourself. And Howie goes, hey, come back for a fair deal. And then Miles goes, well, I got an offer from Atlanta and it's a lot more money, or an offer from the Raiders and it's way more money. And you kind of, work the deals as you do. He wants to come back. I would bring back Miles Sanders. I think the pairing of him and Gainwell is proven to be really good. I wish they would have ran Miles Sanders more in the Super Bowl and obviously in the playoffs, but what are you going to do? Hindsight is 2020. I don't hate the idea of Saquon. I mean, people always do, like, do you want Saquon or not? Sure. But can you really afford Saquon Barkley? Do you want to invest in Saquon Barkley? And for me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And we can get into Bijan Robinson here in a second after you come back from my answer, but I just don't think Saquon is worth what he's going to want to be paid, and he's going to be wanting to pay a ton of money.
I agree. Yep. Man, I'm seeing it here in the comments. Several different, I think, Classic Productions. We've got Brandon Wright, Tyler Wallace, several people mention it, but I've got it on my show tomorrow and I'll be talking about that. But I'll mention it here. I agree if Saquon was the right price, but I mean, we're talking about Saquon on a rookie deal. I don't think that makes any sense at all. Now, I will also say I'm not a huge fan of Miles Sanders. I mean, I love the guy, but in terms of bringing him back, I think there's a lot of other viable options. I think he really hurt his stock in the Super Bowl. I know that there's the argument that he didn't play a whole lot, but I mean, if you watch some of his first couple of runs, it's like the dude's trying to fumble. Like, wait, the first run he fumbles out of bounds. Okay, thankfully that didn't get recovered, but he fumbled at least one or two other times. He just didn't have it. So I know it's the biggest stage. You could say, hey, that's one game. Sure, he had a couple of good games during the playoffs. But to me, I'm like, you know what? We can find someone else. Unless maybe Miles has a just super great discount deal. I'm happy that he loves Philly. You could get the loyalty card and hopefully that helps you there. But to me, I'm not really in favor of that. But with Saquon Barkley, going to back to that argument, I mean, you're right. He was really successful, especially this season. He had a career high with rushing yards. He had 10 rushing touchdowns, Pro Bowl selection. But I don't know if we're going to see that again. Do you? I mean, because the question always becomes, like, what's the threshold for NFL running backs?
Yeah.
And he's like 25 years old, right? Like 25, 26. That's when they're considered over the hill, which is insane because I'm 30 and that makes me feel even a lot older. But when you're talking about NFL running backs, I mean, that's it, right? So he's 26 years old. And if we go back to the Bijan argument, which I would love to make, Bijan's 21. So, there's that possibility. And I've seen a lot of player comps saying that Bijan is the next Saquon Barkley or possibly better. So if you're telling me I can get a guy for 5 years younger, much better contract, and he's going to come into the offense and be able to learn it from scratch, not having anything else to go with, then I'm going to take that. He's going to be fresh. You can spell him with Kenny Gainwell. I love that option. You could play it on third down, swap him out. But we also don't really know for sure what's going to happen with the whole QB sneak. I mean, what if they outlaw that? Some people have been mentioning, hey, we need a power back. We need someone who can push the pile, get the touchdowns done, because it's not like Nick's going to stop going for it on 4th and 1. He's just going to figure out a new way to do it. But if you get Bijan behind this offensive line, that's scary. And I watched my fair share of Big 12 games, obviously watching a lot of Baylor games, the Texas games, and everything there. But I'm telling you, Bijan Robinson, I almost never go for draft a running back early in the first round, but I from what I've heard, other news stations, being behind the scenes here in Dallas loves him. They're really trying to figure out a way to get Bijan Robinson. I think if we could steal him, that would be my vote, and I would be so much more happy for it, even outside of just getting it for the Eagles. But the fact that Dallas can't have him.
Right. I want to let's talk about Bijan, because that's he's the hottest name right now in Philadelphia. Every single one of my videos, I will talk about defensive coordinators, and I will get comments saying draft Bijan Robinson. One final thought on let's talk about Saquon Barkley. You're looking at being paid. He wants to be paid like one of the highest paid running backs in the National Football League. Okay, your highest paid running back right now is Chris McCaffrey, $16 million a year. Right now, we're looking at an estimated contract at 4 years, $47 million, which is about $12 million a year for Saquon Barkley. If that's the money, there's just no way. There's just no way. Do you want CJ Gardner-Johnson? Do you want to maybe bring back Javon Hargrave? Unlikely. But do you want to have a chance at these players or Saquon Barkley? The choice is yours. Now, over here to Bijan Robinson, I think we have to have a conversation about that, because every single comment now is saying draft Gibbs. Presidential Mike said draft Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama, in the second round. And then, of course, Tyler Wallace saying Bijan is greater than any running back in free agency or trade. He'll be a rookie contract. He's young, and he's the next Saquon, basically quoting what you just said. I hear all of that. I like all of that. Here's my problem: the draft order. I don't know where he's going to go, because you can't spend number 10 on Bijan Robinson, in my opinion. Like, if they can re-sign Javon Hargrave and CJ Gardner-Johnson, maybe. But if you lose Javon Hargrave and you keep CJ Gardner-Johnson and you lose James Bradbury, 10 has got to be a defensive player. I think you have to get a corner or some sort of defensive lineman, whether it's a pass rusher, whether it's interior guy, whatever. So, okay, you can't take him at 10, in my opinion. That means you have to hope he gets past 20. And if he gets past 20, then you're in the green zone where you could trade up for him, because right now Philadelphia sits at 30 because there are only 31 picks this year, thanks to Miami and the whole Tom Brady situation. But we're talking about teams after 20 who very much could be in need of a running back. Baltimore, Todd McShay's most recent mock draft had him going to Baltimore. J.K. Dobbins' knee is no longer the same. Yes, they need wide receivers, but maybe they trade for one and then they go ahead and stay put and take a running back. Minnesota, what if they trade Dalvin Cook or cut Dalvin Cook? Talked about that a little bit earlier. Then you can just move down the list here. Giants lose Saquon Barkley. You think the Giants are going to pass on the next Saquon Barkley at 26? No, Dallas at 27. So if you want Bijan Robinson, which I think he's legit, you have to come up. And then it's a matter of, will Howie be willing to trade up in this draft versus trade down, which is what Howie seems to do a whole lot. The other scenario is, and a long-winded answer is, they trade back from 10, kind of like what they have done recent drafts. Remember them moving back? Howie loves doing that. You go from 10 to 15, get an additional second-round draft pick, and then take Bijan at 15. That's kind of where it gets a little weird for me. I will listen to the Bijan arguments 24/7 because I think he is just that good. And in this offense, I mean, it'd be stupid. Can you imagine read option with Jalen Hurts and Bijan Robinson? But I can't spend number 10 on him. And so that's where I kind of go, it's probably not going to happen.
Yep, and I'm with you again, because like I say, with the early rounds, first round drafting, if this guy has a grade, just if you talk about, I think ESPN Plus had an article on it of prospects in the first round, and there's apparently only 19 prospects with a first round grade. Now, granted, there's obviously going to be more drafted than 19 in the first round, but apparently there's only 19 that are worth being drafted in the first round. With that being said, I don't know that I would draft him at 10, so I agree with you there. But like you talked about, trading back, what does that look like? How many picks? Could you get a second pick, even a pick in another round, second or third round type pick? Because from what I've seen, unless you're drafting, because like I say, with the top 19 being first round talent, you draft Bijan, maybe you move back to somewhere around 20, maybe even 18, 19. You draft Bijan there if he's available. And you know what? If he's not, fine, you've got an extra draft pick. Then let's go with some corners, because I agree with what the comments are saying too. I mean, you definitely need to shore up some other spots. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with some of the other defensive players. Yeah. But the grades that everyone's getting, it apparently is a very loaded draft for cornerbacks and defensive backs. So let's say you get someone in the second or third round. I don't think that's the worst scenario. I mean, if you've got an option to trade back, I think the stars may have to align, because again, I don't think that Howie's going to just immediately be like, oh, we've got to have Bijan. But if there's an opportunity to potentially move back and draft him there, I would love to see him pull the trigger. Someone just said, where was it? Marley said, trade up from 30 if Bijan starts to fall, or sign Kareem Hunt. So who had the Bills comment? Someone said Bijan. Oh, I trade with Baltimore or the Bills. Let's just talk. Let's take our Eagle shirts off here for a second and put on Buffalo ones. If you're Buffalo and you can get Bijan Robinson, what's been Buffalo's entire issue besides maybe play calling in that wild card game, or sorry, the divisional round game?
if they had a legit running back, I mean, Buffalo would be incredible. Bijan Robinson is going to really be the player to watch in this draft because the quarterbacks, there really isn't going to be one that surprises you minus Anthony Richardson. And so Bijan is that superstar player that everybody knows. They all wonder, and they're going to see where he goes. And if he gets past 10 and then he gets past 15, I think you're going to see people go ahead and trade up to grab him at that point.